against Jeskai Aggro.
And this is the debut of Chandra, the new creature/planeswalker on camera here. A lot of competition at 3 mana, and Ash has split the difference in a couple spots here. 2 copies of Goblin Heel Cutter, 2 copies of Goblin Rabblemaster, 3 copies of Whirling Outburst, and 2 copies of Chandra. I agree that 9 to 10 3-drops is about the most this deck can tolerate. I don't know if this is the correct mixture, but I can appreciate the numbers that she selected here.
Well, we're about to be underway, so this should be pretty fun to watch. Finally, a mono red aggro deck, and I know a lot of people have been clamoring for that at home, just wondering, how is mono red aggro doing? Is Goblins a deck? Is Elves a deck? Doesn't look like Elves is anything just yet, though the Magic Origins draft I did last night proved that it's pretty good in that format.
The problem is that it's a deck that pushes you to be aggressive, and it's 2 colors. The quality in Elves seem like a mixture of a green and black cards, and you're going to just lose your mana a fair bit of the time. There's only so many Land War Wastes to go around.
Both players take a look at their opening hands. Looks like they're happy. We're going to be underway here in round number 14 right now. Seawell will start off with a Shivan Reef. And Durbeck with a Mountain into a Fire Drinker Satyr.
Yes!
I know who you're rooting for. This is basically your invitational card.
It boggles my mind how much hate this card gets for red decks, particularly when there's so few red decks being played right now. If there's a lot of Wild Slashes and Lightning Strikes going around the metagame, I can understand cutting this card, but when you're trying to beat Abzan, this is the card I want.
There's a Wild Slash.
So who cares? It doesn't even matter that much.
Durbeck going to go down to 18. We'll see what the follow-up she has. A Zergo and a passing of the turn.
You're overreacting. Also, Ryan took 1 off the Shivan Reef, so it's not even really that bad.
That's true. Now he's taking 1 off a Flooded Strand. So it's like it actually hit.
Right.
Going to search up a basic island.
Asher with a heavy burn component in her list. 4 Wild Slash, 4 Lightning Strike, 4 Stoke the Flame, 2 Exquisite Firecraft, 2 copies of Searing Blood. I like the main deck Searing Bloods right now in this metagame. A lot of Soulfire Grandmasters, a lot of copies of Jace and Nissa floating around.
Yep. A lot of targets for that card. There's another Shivan Reef. Here is a Jace. So Vryn's Prodigy is here. It's going to get hit by a Wild Slash. Now Durbeck will untap. She'll take a draw step. Picked up a copy of Monastery Swiftspear. She'll play that pre-combat. Looks like it's time to get into the red zone. Seawell will take 3. Down to 15. Is there a good follow-up? Here's the answer is no. So we'll just go back Seawell's way. He'll play a Plains. Pass the turn back. Durbeck will draw. Some mana issues at this point. Here come the attackers.
And I think Ryan is sitting on a Wild Slash here in anticipation of a Rabblemaster, but he just can't keep taking these shots.
No.
Particularly against Ash's build, because she has so many burn spells.
It appears that Ryan has at least 1 copy of Wild Slash in hand.
And Ash is happy to just keep doing this.
Yep. There's Wild Slash. She's got to take 1 to cast it. This looks like 1 damage will come across from the Swiftspear as well. Seawell down to 10. We'll see what the follow-up is here, if there is one. It'll be a Lightning Strike. And this is all pre-combat here, so looks like Wild Slash is going to take care of the Swiftspear with the Prowess trigger on the stack.
But it's still a lot of damage, and Ryan's tapping those Shivan Reefs quite a few times.
Yep. Seawell will just have to pass the turn back.
And now if Ash finds land number 3, all of a sudden her 3-drops are unlocked because all the Wild Slash has been used up. So Ryan's kind of gotten the worst of both worlds here, where he's taking a lot of hits off of these creatures, and now is still exposed to the 3-drops.
And now, here comes a Whirling Outburst, 3 Goblin tokens on the way. Seawell's in some trouble here. There's a copy of Hushwing Griff.
Womp womp.
Not for this matchup. Not for this match.
Hey guys, what's going on here? Any comes into play triggers? Nope. All right.
Guess I'll just attack for 2.
Guess I'll attack.
Durbeck will take a look at the 2-1 Flash Flyer.
This is not the party that Hushwing Griff asked for.
Not
Trying to
at
get some
all.
Nisses and some Siege Rhinos and maybe Dragon Lord Atarka.
Mountain the draw. Lands aren't bad in this situation. Let Durbeck start casting multiple spells a turn.
And there are 2 spells in her graveyard right now. So if Ashes attacks here and is able to knock Ryan down to 4, Exquisite Firecraft finishes the job and no counterspell can help.
Yep.
Happens to be a weird negate or something like that hanging out in Ryan's list.
Here's a Goblin Heel Cutter. That'll be dashed. Here come the beatdowns. See if Seawell has something to play here. Another Hushwing Griff.
Sweet.
That's going to try to trade with the Heel Cutter. That'll work. 3 damage will come across.
And now Ryan is at that magical 4.
That's where you want to be. Yep, and he's just going to concede the game. Ash Durbeck is going to win game number 1 here over Ryan Seawell. Mono Red Aggro up a game very quickly over Jeskai Aggro. Don't expect a very long match here, as both these decks can kill very quickly. But it looks like Durbeck's deck is positioned relatively well for the matchup.
Yeah, Ryan's got some good cards to the sideboard in here, which we'll get to in a moment, which is good because he's also got quite a few cards to take out, most notably Hushwing Griff.
How are you going to talk about the Griff like that? How are you going to do that? Great card, super powerful, just, okay, it's not
Wrong
for this
matchup.
match.
Wrong matchup. Wrong matchup.
We will take a look at Seawell's sideboard. He's got 3 Disdainful Stroke, 2 End Hostilities, 2 Arishan Clerics, 2 Anger of the Gods, 2 Glare of Heresy, a Stratus Dancer, an Elspeth, an Erase, and a Negate.
Love Negate in this matchup. The 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, 2 copies of Arishan Cleric. And I think there's an argument for Stratus Dancer and Elspeth. They're a little bit on the slow side, but both come with a lot of power for the matchup.
We do take a look at Durbeck's sideboard now.
4 copies of Rose, 2 copies of Goblin Rabblemaster, a Harness by Force, 2 copies of Exquisite Firecraft, 2 copies of Searing Blood, 2 copies of Scouring Sands, 2 copies of Outpost Siege. Love the copies of Exquisite Firecraft and Searing Blood in this matchup. Ash can convert into a burn deck here, avoid a lot of the removal that Ryan's bringing to the table. I think she can also bring in the 2 copies of Outpost Siege because the game's going to be going on for a much longer than it did in game 1 if Ryan has anything to say about it, and Outpost Siege can be very powerful in a protracted game.
Well, these players will shuffle up and get ready here for game number 2. Seawell will be on the play with this Jeskai Aggro deck, but in the meantime, we'll talk about the Season 4 schedule of the Open Series. It is fully announced, good to go. We're going to fire it off with the Modern Open in Cincinnati.
Yeah, after that, we go to Worcester for a Standard Open, then Milwaukee, back to Indianapolis for a Standard Open. After Indianapolis, we go to Atlanta, take a week off, and then a Legacy Open Series in St. Louis, a Modern Open Series in Dallas, back to Philadelphia for a Standard Open. After that, we go to Grand Prix Atlanta, which will be sealed. We'll have more information on that event when we get a little bit closer. Standard Open in Kansas City, Legacy in New Jersey, back to Denver for the first time in many years for a Standard Open Series. Then we have the Season 4 Invitational in Las Vegas, Nevada. Standard and Modern as the invitational formats with a 2-day $20,000 Standard Open Series event. And then after that, the Players Championship in Roanoke, Virginia at the Star City Games headquarters, December 19th and 20th to close out the year.
Looking forward to all those dates. Should be a lot of fun. And we'll have our Season 4 playmat for you guys soon enough. Not able to unveil that today, but keep your eyes out for that because I know a lot of people like Polar Punch, and of course Tassa Per, the Golden Paw, featuring Bananas the Slave Dog.
Featuring Bananas, the Slave Dog.
So again, when we do have more information about that stuff, we will certainly send it your way, but now we do get ready here for game number 2 between Durbeck and Seawell. Mono Red Aggro, not a very popular deck this weekend. Hasn't been popular just yet in the format. But Durbeck having a very good weekend with the aggressive strategy, and Seawell also doing quite well with his Jeskai Aggro deck. Just right now, Wild Slash is a card that is really priced to move. It seems very well positioned.
Reasonable chance I play Mono Red Aggro in Grand Prix San Diego. To be determined. There's a couple decks I'm considering. But Ash's list is fairly close to the one that I would play. I wish there was a couple more 2-drops in the deck. And if you're not going to play that many 2-drops, then I wish there were more 1-drops. So you could go 1-drop, turn 2, 1-drop, 1-drop a little bit more frequently. But I like the mixture of cards here.
Seems like there's something good going on here. I've just felt that right now, red decks are really underplayed. Not anyone really keeping them all that honest at this point.
Definitely agree.
For example, Ryan over here, he's got some cards that are good against him, and Anger of the Gods and Erishin Cleric, but only 2 of each.
If you're playing with cards like Hushwing Griff, Exquisite Firecraft's not very good in this kind of matchup. Jace obviously is not going to be that strong. 3 main deck copies of Dig Through Time. The first Dig Through Time is pretty good for you. The extra copies are probably not. He is not really gunning for this matchup. Sideboard's got some action to it, but it's not like he's sideboarding 9 cards here or anything like that.
Yep.
It's just Ryan's philosophy for this matchup is probably, I've got a lot of cards that are reasonable in my main deck. I've got some good sideboard cards. I don't need to go out of my way to sideboard for the red deck. This will be good enough. And if Mono Red or Atarka Red, those are prevalent decks, this mixture of cards is probably not enough to have a positive matchup.
Well, as the games do unfold, we will certainly find out. Again, see what will be on the plate here for game number 2. And if you are just joining us, it is Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan here in the booth. We've got Ken Crocker in the sideboard. Twitter, that's where you want to be. Join in on the conversation at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Rich all weekend long, where we've been able to name our Kraken because of you from the Game Night series. So we had Furious George the Monkey. Now we've gone with Ray Lease for the Kraken. So thank you, Twitter, for that. And just have some fun joining in on the conversation as we're in round number 14 of 15 here in Richmond. Of course, next week in the Open Series will be on hiatus, but there are regional championships to play in, so StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information about that. You can play one of these 2 decks, Mono Red Aggro or Jeskai Aggro. This is Durbeck is just going to start with a mountain and passing the turn. Mystic Monastery here for Seawell. And Ash will take a draw step. There is a mountain. And the follow-up is a copy of...
That's game!
I love the Great Ruffle. Not quite sure if that's game or not, but Patrick feels
By
that it
game,
is.
I mean it'll probably trigger once or twice for Ash and be pretty powerful.
That is likely. Here is a temple.
This card is also very good right now.
Yes. I'm an Eidolon guy. Ash will untap, take a draw. Here is a mountain. Here comes the Eidolon. Sacrifice a Flooded Strand and a Lightning Strike. That'll trigger the Eidolon, 3 damage dealt. It's a card that demands an answer right away.
And even if they do answer it, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
You still get your points.
You still got your 2 damage. And now you got a Whirling Outburst to follow up. So Durbeck off to a great start. 3 goblins on the way. One card Ash does need to be on the lookout for, of course, is Ojutai's Command. Really good card in this matchup.
It's expensive enough and obvious enough that you can usually afford to be playing around it, but if you're ever sloppy, it does way too much damage.
Battlefield Forge, Mantis Rider. The Rider's going to come in for 3 points of damage, and that does demand an answer. So Durbeck will untap. She'll take a draw. Turn number 4. Stoke the Flames is the find. There is a mountain. Looks like at least 1 copy of Lightning Strike in hand. Here come the Goblin tokens. 2 damage to be dealt. The follow-up, I think, is a Searing Blow.
That's game!
Yeah, that one might actually be game. Because that's a beaten.
That card is really nice against Jeskai right now.
Yeah.
A lot of two toughest creatures in that deck.
Jace, Soulfire Grandmaster, a couple of hits. Seeker of the Way.
Hushwing Griff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really good Searing Blood target.
If that one's still in the deck, yes. A tasty treat.
And remember, because Ash's build is playing with Exquisite Firecraft, once Ryan gets low enough, he doesn't have a lot of ways to prevent himself from getting burned out. He's looking at Ojutai's Command gaining life. That's not the best way to be using that card.
There's a Flooded Strand. Durbeck just going to untap. Take a draw. 2 Goblin tokens on the battlefield. I believe Swiss Spear may have been the draw. And it is. So that'll be the play. Time to go to the attack step. Beatdown's in for 3. At least 3. Could be more.
I really like the way Ash is timing all of her action here, too. She's not being aggressive playing into open mana, simply getting in her shots and passing the turn if Ryan doesn't do anything. Happy to get the points of damage she's getting. When Ryan has put the shields down low, she's pounced. Really good sequencing thus far.
Hey, if we keep playing this way, Ryan's going to lose. So he's got to be the one to make a move.
And remember, it's a different game now with Exquisite Firecraft in this deck. Ryan can still gain a little bit of life, Ochiai's command in particular.
There's a lightning strike. That appears to be adding to the prowess. Sewell going to sacrifice a fetch land here. He's in some real trouble.
Well, now he's down to 4.
Yeah.
So Exquisite Firecraft is, do you have a way to gain life, or that's it?
Stoke the Flames in hand here for Durbeck.
To say nothing about answering the board. I
Yeah,
mean, Ash still has stuff in play.
This is a new one for Magic Origins. Haven't seen much of it just yet. Of course, Chicago last weekend was dominated by green, red Devotion and white, blue Heroic, and this weekend we've seen a lot of dig through time control decks, but Exquisite Firecraft is a great new addition to these red decks, and Ash Durbeck is playing 2 copies in her list.
Yeah, it's a little bit on the slow side for matchups that are about can you handle creatures and so forth. But sideboarding into 4 copies is a great weapon to have for certain matchups.
Yeah, for sure.
Because most decks are eventually trying to close you out with counter spells. They kill all your stuff, and then they're trying to protect themselves with counter spells to beat your burn spells. And Exquisite Firecraft makes that really hard to do.
Here's a dig through time.
Finish your turn, then there are 5 additional turns. Call a judge, you have extra time.
Looks like Ryan may have found a copy of a card like Soulfire Grandmaster, which could play a role in things.
Soulfire Grandmaster plus a burn spell is a good starting point here for Ryan.
There are worse places to be.
Even something like Soulfire Grandmaster plus Anger of the Gods. Yes, he loses the Soulfire Grandmaster, but he picks up quite a bit of life.
Saw Temple of Triumph, a little scry action. There's the Grandmaster. Here comes the Stoke the Flames. It may be. It'll be Anger of the Gods. Okay. Is there a Wild Slash here?
I hope there is for Ash's sake.
There is. Looks like that's going to go after Soulfire Grandmaster, which means that Anger of the Gods no longer has lifelink.
Ryan went for a good shot there. If that
for
resolves, he's got a great shot here, but I don't think he's going to get to untap now.
Everything is dead, and I think that includes Ryan Sewell. Because this is a Hordeling Outburst, and the follow-up is a Stoke the Flames. Ash Durbeck is going to win this match over Ryan Sewell, 2-0. Mono Red Aggro will take care of Jeskai Aggro, and for Durbeck, moving on to 11-3. If she wins next round, we're looking at Mono Red in the top 8.
There's no real point in the game you could point to say this is where it got away from Ryan.
Yep.
He was doing stuff the whole time. Ash was just a little bit more efficient. Lands were coming into play on tap, not taking points of damage along the way. And, you know, that's how these red decks capitalize in matchups like this, where you look at Ryan's deck list, you wouldn't say there's necessarily any big vulnerability. And especially post-board, where he gets to cut some of these inefficient cards and bring in cards like Anger of the Gods and so forth. It's just an issue of the lands and the consistency and not having things to do on turn 1 very often. And that's where the red deck gets its edge. You saw it in both games.